Don't be a mechanic where you sit down and plug in and do it, here's your numbers. How can you think creatively? Paul Green in marketing thinks creatively because he knows where to go get these statistical approaches and how to put it into a marketing context. That's creative. Unique research process. Here's mine. And again, I'm not saying this is right, I'm just saying you've got to have one that makes sense. The first thing is develop multiple streams. I've said this to you 5 times, but develop streams that are saying, I'm going to look at curiosity in management. I'm going to look at curiosity in the acceptance of technology. I'm going to look at curiosity in a consumer behavior fashion. I've leveraged the concept of curiosity in different disciplines. Okay? I know a lot about, there's another topic I studied, you're going to say, well, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I studied a topic called ignorance. Okay? Ignorance is an extremely important topic when, if you believe as I do, we're getting ready to jump over this big deck gulf here and we don't know what's on the other side. Okay? We're going to fly to Mars and we have no idea what's there. So what you are is ignorant. What does ignorant mean? You don't know what you don't know. You have no idea of what the question is. So what I try to do is I try to put ignorance in the context of MIS. Ignorance in the context of MIS is, why won't I get a cell phone? Come on. Well, why not? Too old. No, not too old. I use all other kinds of technology. I don't want to be bothered. But what I'm looking at is, what is the level of ignorance that people have about technology? Does that keep them from accepting new technology? Then I'll look at ignorance in a management standpoint. I'll say, why will managers not unlearn? If I made this explanation to managers, I'd say, does this make sense? And they'd all go, yeah, that makes pretty much sense. That's what's happening. Are you going to keep this? Yeah. Do you know it won't work over here? Yeah. Why are they ignorant about that? Why won't they take a chance? Why won't they unlearn? And the reason for it is they've got too much to lose because they're in charge. It's hard to change people's minds when they're in charge. And most managers means I'm in charge. I'm not going to change. But what that makes you is ignorant. Sal and I were talking about, biases towards the Middle East and everything else. And the reason for it is people are ignorant. You can say, how many people do you know from Saudi? Well, I don't remember anybody, but they're this. How many people have you met from that can give directions from Jordan? The answer is, I have input on that. If you ever, another one.
Another one, yeah.
I have input on that. Let him drive. Don't let him drive. Is what I answer that. But what you can't do is just sit there and say, I'm going to have a project and I'm going to work it in MIS. You can't win doing it. You can't do enough to do that. Make your mind think, what can I apply it to? What can I do? How can I help out? How can I go to the accounting people and say, I've got object learning MIS systems. How's that going to help you? What does that mean? Open access stuff. What's that going to mean to you as an accountant? How can we do this? If you do that, what happens is you get the creativity going and you get the interest in multiple things. Don't work on a project at a time. I don't. What I do is background reading. And what this is again, let's take creativity. There's a lot of stuff written on creativity and psychology. This Robert Sternberg is real big on, does creativity increase? If I can measure it, can I tell that's a smart person? Can I tell that's a person that's going to learn faster? Can I tell that's a person that can adapt better? And a lot of stuff there. So I just read it. And I go, I don't know anything. I put it in the oven. I'll read another one. Okay, boom, I put it in the oven. I'll read 25 articles before I do anything. And probably because of the fields I work in, they're not from business at all. But what I'm starting to think about is, how can I make ignorance relevant to a business person? And again, the way I do it with them is say, what do you know about this? Tell me why this is happening. And they can't do it. Tell me how this is going to impact your company. And they can't do it. And then I say, guess what, guys? You've got to unlearn so that you can learn how to do this, to get around this gap that we think is coming. So background reading just means I will sit down and spend a month reading on a topic. Saturday mornings, it's 4 hours of picking up stuff and just saying, oh, that's interesting, boom, put it in a file. Then I start reading through those files. I develop an understanding of what's missing. They haven't done this before. They haven't applied this before. And what it really helps is I read primarily outside the business discipline. Social psychology, psychology, by degrees, part of it's in sociology. I'll read all those kinds of things. I'm working on a topic now, it's the best topic I've ever had in my life, on dual careers. How do you manage dual career couples in a modern organization? Okay? You say, well, that's not really that interesting. The answer is, it's really interesting. It is inordinately complex. I have no idea how to solve that particular problem. I can go through a whole bunch of things and go, oh Christ, I don't know either. I don't think you know. But what you're looking for is, what doesn't work, or what one person says one thing, one person says the other, and you say, here's the way I can put those together, here's how I can put evidence that this guy's right. Okay, so I always look for anomalies in the data. I always look for anomalies in what psychology is saying as opposed to what sociology is saying. I'll say, something's wrong here. The other thing I do at that same time is I'll look for theories. You don't understand right now, because you probably weren't taught organizational theory that well, because most people don't teach you that well. You've got to have an understanding of theory, so when you say, I've got an article, I've got a theory that's going to support it. Even if you're collecting data, the second section of every paper is a theory section, if you're writing for a reasonably good journal. You've got to base your opinion on somebody else's foundation. You've got to read about it. I keep a list of 250 to 300 theories. And anytime I'm looking at an article, I'll run down through them, and this is why I'm thinking about doing this handbook for PhD students. And I'll say, okay, here's the 4 ones that look like they fit, put them in the oven. I don't solve any problems until I think about it. Then I yes I do. I may not do it. I develop an outline for every article. After I've read about it, I say the contradictions here, the missing data is here. I'll say, okay, here's the introduction, here's the theory, here's the problem in its identifying all the parts of the problem. Here's what I'm going to do about it. And I make it as detailed as I possibly can. Normally these outlines are 3 pages. Why do I have an outline? Because again, if you write the outline, you'll ending up writing a paper. If you just sit down and start writing, it just goes in circles. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay? I make jewelry, and my wife does too. And it's totally different. We buy the same materials, and we come up with totally different things. She throws it all on the floor and starts picking things together. I put everything in a plastic box and lay it out flat, and every piece fits together, and I just slide the wire through it, and it's done. I make 20 necklaces a night, she makes 2. But it's a totally different process in her mind. She doesn't need an outline. She doesn't need I've got a board that I put them on, and it aligns and gives me the length. It shows me the colors, the combinations, and all the rest of it. She just sits there and and she comes up with beautiful things, but it's chaotic. What I'm saying to you is you have to have something you're going to follow, or you're going to spend a lot of time just doing, well, what's next? What's next? If you look at the outline, the 4 points underneath it are the topic sentences for the key paragraphs that you're going to write in that section. You look at the next section is on this, you have 4 or 5 points, those are the topic outlines for the all of a sudden you got the parts of the paper, just like the diagrams. I develop a visual depiction. I think there are a lot of people who learn by pictures. Picture's worth 1,000 words. I'll show you a picture and you'll study and you'll say, okay, I understand what you're talking about. I also find if I can't draw a picture, I don't understand what I'm talking about. If I can't put it down in it's not necessarily a model, but it's a visual depiction of what's going on, then I've got a problem. And if you look at almost every article I write, it will have one key thing that says, here are all the parts of what I'm going to talk about. And then I pick out each one of those and I write a page or 2 pages of it. Pick out another one, page or 2 pages. All of a sudden I've written 8,000 words. But I do it off of that outline because there's a beginning and an end. There are topic sentences throughout. There are topics that I have to cover. Now, do they always remain the same in the outline? No. It's mirroring again. We're going to change it. Oh my God, we're going to change it.